Welcome to Varn Vlog. Solo. There's no guest today. And I'm talking about cultures on the internet as I pack up my office and prepare to move to a different studio. One of the fascinating things that I've talked about is the changes of the internet over time. I did an interview with Catherine D of Default Friend. I don't know if she ever ran it. And about early political internet from GeoCities when I was first doing zines in my teens in a library computer and at the high school to today. And one of the things that I've said for a long time, for about 15 years, is that particularly men's inability to get punched in the face on a regular basis has made them where they think their disapproval or usually cliched insult is enough to substitute for an argument. And it really shows up when I do shorts, because a lot of these people don't seem to have the time, inclination, or frankly executive function to engage in a long form interview. I don't get the comments from them. I get different kind of hate comments on the long form shows, but I don't get a ton. And to be fair, I don't get a ton of hate comments on the shorts either, but I get more of them, and they tend to be less substantive. You're not the sharpest tool in the shed, or someone's an idiot, or something like that. No reason why, often not even telling me what they're responding to. You go and sometimes you check out who these people listen to, and it's like weightlifters and nutritional experts and financial scam artists that don't have their best interest at heart. And you realize that this is a problem of a decadent media system. The screaming into the void is what people feel like they can do. The internet cultures are fandoms. Fandoms are a passive relationship where the activity comes from you yelling at people giving you content, often without any substantive critique whatsoever. But politics mirrors this now. It's deeply influenced our culture. And when you talk to people who have trouble socializing in person, which is overstated with Gen Zers, but it is real. I'm a high school teacher, I know. What you begin to start seeing is, not that I should be mad at these commenters or even really engage with them very deeply. I mean, it doesn't really hurt my feelings. It's performative, but I don't really know who it's performative for. It helps me in the algorithm. Sometimes, it's from ideological enemies, but I don't really have that many outside of a certain monitoring organization. And you begin to see that what this is really about is people responding to what they don't like as insults because they're alienated from social, political, and really intellectual action. That's not unique to this time period. It's not unique to the internet. It happens all the time. It is why elites used to have contempt for the hoi polloi, because they could not cultivate themselves. But what I find interesting about the internet is this performative, insulting, this kind of, let's say, sub-bar talk, because in a bar you can actually get punched in the face, is substituting for some kind of intellectual discourse, because these cultures are alienating, right? You can ghost people in them. You don't have ties of mutuality that make you deal with people on a way that is beyond instrumentalized. When you see this in dating too, when your choices seem infinite, you end up having less choices, more scams, alienation, negative gender patterns start reasserting themselves. On dating apps, you often, and I've seen dating apps, women have shown me what they get, and it's like the worst stereotype of the way men interact, which you wouldn't see as much in a bar. Which is not to say that it was an ideal world before the internet. We all know that it wasn't. Um, we all know that people are alienated, and that women in particular were alienated. But the other thing that the internet lets you do is be relatively socially isolated and then think that your problems, your insights into those problems, and the way you feel is somehow special. But it's not. It's not special at all. And that's okay. It doesn't make it invalid. Um, a lot of the alienation and misunderstanding is legitimate. When I make shorts, what do? I cut up longer episodes. And I try to find good clips for them. You don't get the context from the clips. You don't understand what I'm talking about. And since I often try to attack principles rather than people, you often don't know who or what I'm talking about, particularly in short clips. So some rando comes through on the internet, it gets thrown on them in the algorithm, and they respond. They might get more of it because they'll interact with this stuff. The more they interact with it, the more rage interactions they do, the longer they stay on the site, the more ads can be thrown in their face, the more this pseudo economy can keep on going. And I call it a pseudo economy because I'm not sure these ads and whatnot actually generate a ton of revenue. Maybe they do. The stats on that are not clean. It's like with streaming, it's become clear now that streaming doesn't generate a ton of revenue, that it has a lot of cost compared to its income ratios. And similar with YouTube's largesse on monetization has been going down for a decade. Everyone I know who monetizes themselves talks about it. And it's talked to me about it since probably 2019, 2018, even 2017. People were already talking about having open Patreons and whatnot to sustain themselves because the ad revenue was getting smaller. And like 2016. Now it's almost a decade ago at this point. So that whole economy that grew from a hobbyist economy in the aughts to an ad-based economy in the aught teens with more algorithmic and captured audiences led to both moral panics and moral panics about it. And you remember everyone saying YouTube was radicalizing everyone right wing, and then on the right, people were thinking that YouTube was just a woke nightmare world. So we have to face the fact that, one, a lot of men in particular have been lonely. They get their jollies and dopamine kicks by negative interactions on the internet. They are not socialized well, and I don't just mean in the negative sense of being punched in the face, like I mentioned earlier, but also in the positive sense of the reinforcement that a lot of people get from these interactions. I've dropped the stat a lot, but if the men's project is correct, 1 in 6 men don't have families. They don't have that many are any close friends. They don't participate in larger communities offline. And a lot of them don't have consistent work. They're gig employed. This is not, regardless of whether or not you're a leftist or a rightist or whatever, a particularly viable social model. And a lot of the reactivity that you see in politics online and the stupidity associated with that is reflected on the internet more than caused by it. But it's magnified by that reflection, just like running light through a mirror into a prism. Maybe it's good that we see the social alienation this way because it makes it harder and harder to deny. I know there are lots of liberals who will try to deny their loneliness epidemic. They'll try to deny, that too much time online was bad for executive function, that there was an increase in suicidality until right before COVID-19 happened. And I'm talking about stuff again, at this point is half a decade or almost a decade ago, but I got a lot of pushback for talking about the deleterious and degenerate effects of internet culture, but people thought I was blaming the internet, which is super common. You can go listen to Jonathan Haidt if you want to do that. The internet reflects both our cultural and social economic patterns. It magnifies those patterns. As I've said in the past, some of us want our alienation because it's what we know. Not because it's good, not because we think it's good, but it's what we know. How do we change that? So I'm doing a little short inspired by some of the weirder comments I get on my shorts. And it is on my shorts. It is not on the main stuff. I get hostile comments on the main show, but it is people actually engaging. They had to listen to a full episode, or at least enough of it decided to check out. That's what they did. That's fine. But I'm fascinated with this because it does indicate a larger social problem that is larger than the technology mediating that society. We could have a different internet. We could. The internet itself is not a problem. Not to say it's neutral. It isn't neutral. It's colored by the larger social and political impulses of our society. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. Protect your peace. If you want to hear more substantive stuff than this, like and subscribe. But I really do want you guys, and this is not just a clickbait engagement farming, although, yes, this, if you engage with me, it will help with that. Why do you think this is happening? Why is like the internet culture of my youth was not brilliant? It had less information. I don't want to romanticize it. But there's this tendency right now amongst the progressives to pretend like the past was all bad and that today, like people's nostalgia is just some kind of ideologically induced nostalgia. And I don't fucking think so. Sorry, Alex Garland. It's larger than just nostalgia. There's real things driving why people are retreating to that nostalgia. Maybe instead of bitching about people having the nostalgia, and bitching about people acting alienated on the internet, as I almost started to today, we start asking ourselves, why is this happening? And it's got to be more specific than just capitalism, which is what everyone, even liberals, will say now. What in capitalism changed beyond the technology itself? Protect your peace, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and take care of yourselves. And haters, keep hating. Maybe some of you will actually make a positive contribution and have a substantive response when you actually tell me why you're angry or why you think I'm stupid, because I know I'm not.